Hi, this is John with Citizen Survival Plan. In today's video, we are going to cover every single menu option in your basic GMRS radio. This is going to cover a lot of your Baofengs like this, your Btechs, and any other general GMRS radio. So if you're new to GMRS radio, or you've picked up some radios and you really just want to know how everything works, this video is for you. So let's get started. Alright, first thing on the list is SQL. This is Squelch. So when you set your radio to 1, Squelch 1 to 5, 1 is going to let in everything, even the weak, fuzzy crap signals. You're going to hear them. You're going to hear people trying to get through to you. You might not be able to make out what it is, but it's going to let it in. 5, if you set it to 5, it's only going to allow the nicest, cleanest, clearest signal into your radio so you can hear it. Okay, step. Step is for scanning and when you hit up and down on your menu when you're going through frequencies. This is not super important with GMRS unless you are scanning other signals that are not GMRS channels. So if I was trying to look up emergency services, or I'm scanning my local EMS or police or whatever you're trying to do. So this is a demo of step. We're going to go to step. So this is 2.5, and we will confirm it there. And you'll see when I go up, it's only going up 2.5 at a time. Now, when I go into step, and just for demonstration purposes, we're going to set it the whole way to that, the whole way to 50. So when I go back, you'll see we're really going to start jumping. 7, 760, 810. So that is your step. It does that in scan mode also. So it does it when you're just pressing up and down and when you hit scan. Okay, a brief rundown on scanning on a GMRS radio. When you're in channel mode and hold scan, it's just going to scan through the channels that are in the GMRS channel mode. If you want to use that step feature, you have to go into VFO or frequency mode. Typically, and yours could be different, you need to consult your manual. You're going to hold menu and kick your GMRS radio on, and it will go into frequency mode, and then you can scan all bands using your step function. TXP. This is simply just your power level. There's nothing to this one. This is for transmit power. So when you're transmitting, it has nothing to do with what you're receiving. Typically on these radios, you're going to see them in high, medium, or low. Some of the Btechs, it's just low or high. The higher you set it, the more power, the further you're going to go. The lower, the more battery you're going to save, but you're not going to go as far. Save. This is in your menu as a battery save option. So the higher you set battery save, so if you set it to 10, it's going to save your battery more, and when you set it to 1, it will not save your battery. When you set it to 1, it will burn up your battery faster. Now, from what I can tell, what this is doing is shutting your radio down into a sleep mode and waking it up. So, if someone were to transmit to you and you have your battery saved the whole way up, you might miss a very small portion of the beginning of their transmission while your radio was in a sleep mode. In my opinion, this does not save much battery, but I typically put mine just in the middle. I've never seen anything where I'm missing a bunch of transmissions. Vox. Vox is voice-activated transmission. So what this does is when you turn this on, 1 to 10, 10 being you're really going to have to speak up into the radio for it to transmit, and 1 being very sensitive. You could whisper and your radio will start transmitting what you're saying. This is not something that is good to use, because if you have this on, in my opinion, it's just going to be transmitting everything that it's hearing. Your radio is going to be going off and just aggravating everybody. Just leave this menu item off. WN is wideband or narrowband. For us, we just want it to be in wideband. I want to get as much range as possible. Wideband will help this. In your lower GMRS channels, I think between 1 and like channel 14, I could be wrong, I'll put it on the screen here, it is going to be in narrowband because that is the limitation of that channel, meaning the FCC has regulated it that it needs to be narrowband. Now, once you get up past channel 15 and into your repeater channels, it's wideband all the way. It will give you better range. Just leave it in wideband. ABR is your display illumination time. So 1 being like 1 second and 10 being 10 seconds. So this is just how long the screen stays illuminated after you're done pushing buttons. It's the backlight. Basically, you can turn it 1 to 10 or just turn it off. TDR. This is your dual watch. Let's say you have a repeater channel up and you have just a regular simplex channel up talking to everybody. When the repeater goes off, it'll listen, even if you're on your simplex channel. And it can be used with 2 repeater channels, 2 simplex channels, it doesn't matter. It is gonna, whatever is transmitting between those 2 channels, it will illuminate, light up, and let you hear what people are saying on that channel. So this is a very quick demo on TDR, which is just dual standby or dual watch or whatever you want to call it. I will transmit to my repeater, and even though you can see it's not on the repeater, it will play. And then if I want to go back to the top channel, which is GMRS 17, it will listen there, or right back to the repeater. It is just listening to 2 channels at once. Beep. This is a really easy one. This is simply just when you push buttons if the radio beeps or not. If you prefer it to beep, turn it on. If you don't want to hear the beeps, turn it off. TOT is transmission timeout. You can set this the whole way up to 60 seconds. That means you can transmit for a whole 60 seconds before the radio kicks off and stops transmitting. This is to save your radio from overheating. You just can't just transmit forever. And this just is just the timer for it. This is also helpful when your radio is in a chest rig or something and it's bumping up against something, and let's say it gets jammed on, or it's in a bag and it gets jammed on. It will time it out after 1 minute, so it doesn't absolutely kill your battery. So let's get into RDCS, RCTCSS, TDCS, and TTCTCSS. So these are privacy tones, and that's all that they are. You can turn them on to limit other people transmitting into your radio if you don't want to hear everyone transmitting around you. The transmit DCS and CTCSS is to activate a repeater. If a repeater has a tone on it, you need to put your transmit tone in, whether it be digital or a CTCSS tone. This will unlock that repeater when you transmit to it so you can use the repeater. For this one, I will do a little demo for you. This is your privacy tones. This is TDCS, TCTCSS, and the receive, the both, the RCTCSS, and all of them. They all do the same thing. R is for receive, and then when you go to T, that's for transmit. Either you're using digital or the analog ones. So right now this has got a DCS tone on it of 23. So this is a privacy tone. So everyone else, this radio has no privacy tones on it. They're all off. But I can still transmit to it. And it will play out of the radio when I transmit. But because this radio has privacy tones in it, when I transmit to this radio will key up, but as you can tell, nothing is playing out of the radio. This is because the privacy tones only tone other people out. So this is where transmit tones matter. So this one has a digital tone on it of 261. And again, your CTCSS tones work the same way, they're just labeled something different. But for all intensive purposes, they all work the same. They're just labeled different things in your radio. So this is my personal repeater with that tone on it. And this is my radio. If I were to transmit to this radio, my transmit tone from this radio has to match the repeater. Otherwise, I will not be able to enter the repeater. It just won't pick it up. So right now, my tones are in, and you'll see this repeater. I'm transmitting through it right now. Now, if I were to take my radio and turn these off, and we'll turn that off, and you'll watch. I'm going to key it up behind me. The repeater will not pick up what I'm transmitting. This is when transmit tones matter. Voice. This is just the voice that plays when you're going through the menu. It'll tell you what you're clicking on and repeat it out in English or Chinese. The voice, simply, you can pick English or Chinese. SCREV is your scanning options. So let me just go over which ones do what. If you set it to TO, it'll stop when it hears a transmission and play it, and then after a certain amount of time, it will move on and keep scanning. CO will stop when it hears something, and then it will move on once that signal is gone and there's no more transmission on that channel. SE is my favorite because it will scan until it finds something, and when it hears something on that channel, it will stop and will not resume scanning until you let the radio start scanning again by hitting the scan button. MDFA and MDFB are what you want the channel on the screen to show you. So if you have named the channel a name in Chirp, it will display the name, whether that be Kyle or Tim or whatever you want to name that channel. It can be anything. It will display it as a name. You can choose frequency, and it just shows simply the frequency, or the channel number. So it will just say whether it's channel 13, 15, or whatever. You can choose what you want it to tell you about that channel in this menu. And A operates channel A, which is the first line, and B operates the second line, so you can choose. The bottom one could be frequency, and the top one could be A. It's whatever you want. It is just preference. But if you've named something in Chirp, typically you're going to want it to just display that name, and that's the menu option for that. BCL is busy channel lockout. So if you're on a repeater or a simplex channel, it doesn't matter, and someone's transmitting on it, whether you have privacy tones on or not, doesn't matter. It will not let you transmit up while that is busy. This is kind of helpful, so it'll give you a little beep back and let you know someone's transmitting on it, and letting you know you did not make a transmission. Just give it a second, and then you can transmit. So there's two on here that do not pertain to GMRS, but if you're using a ham radio or something, I actually have a video on these two menu items and what they do. It does not do anything in GMRS. Your frequency direction and your offset are fixed on GMRS. When you use a repeater, it will automatically do this for you. It's set at a certain amount, and GMRS never changes. SFTD, which is shift direction, and offset. If you want to watch a video on this, I have one. I'll put it here. RCH-AD. This is a channel add. It simply lets you add a channel. If you click on this, you can add a channel with your own parameters, privacy tones, whatever you want in it, and save it. DELCH is delete channel. So this just is the same thing as the other one. Instead of adding or deleting, just delete a channel with this one. The next three are kind of all the same. They are just your screen colors. So there is an RX LED that's received. So what color your screen lights up when someone's transmitting to you. It's typically 2 or 3 colors, orange, blue, or purple, and you can choose it there. Same with TX. When you're transmitting, what color do you want the screen to be? WT LED is standby. That's what color the screen is when you're just sitting there. ALMOD. This is your alarm mode. So your radio has an alarm on it. If you hold one of the side buttons on it, it will sound an alarm. This is going to be broke up into 3 different menu items you can choose from. SITE is just meaning it's only going to play the alarm through the speaker on your radio. Tone means that when you hit the alarm and you're on channel, let's say 15, you hold it, everyone on channel 15 is going to hear your radio is sounding an alarm, but they won't know who it is, which brings me to my next menu item, code. The code can be set in chirp to whatever you want. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll pick my initials, my 3 initials, my first, middle, and last name. I will take that and put it into the touch tone keypad and figure out what numbers they are. And when I hit my alarm, I could set a code in chirp. And when I hold the alarm, it'll send out a DTMF code. We are going to get into those in a second, so just wait. But you'll see some radios, and if you have an app on your phone, can decode what those touch tones are, and somebody could see the number in which what is transmitting, and they could figure out who is in distress with this. TDR-AB. So on radios like this, from what I've found online, this is the UV5R. I think this is like the Pro model, but they're pretty much all the same. This is an unused setting. I have desperately tried to figure out what the heck this is doing, and from what I can tell, it doesn't do anything. It's an unused menu item on this. Now, where this does come into play is if you have a dual push-to-talk. There's 2 push-to-talk buttons on this Btech GMRS V2, and when you choose A as the priority channel, whether you hit A or B, it will transmit on the top line, your top frequency. And same thing, if you choose B, A and B are both going to transmit on that bottom frequency. I don't understand why this is a thing or why it exists, but it does, and there it is. It took me a minute to figure this out because, again, on this one, it wasn't doing anything. So the next 3 menu items are kind of useless in my opinion. It is STE, RPSTE, RPTR-L. These all have to do with Squelch tail elimination. So STE is for Squelch tail elimination when you're transmitting from radio to radio, simplex, no repeater. It is supposed to take out some noise at the end of the transmission. From what I found, I messed around with this a ton. I see this much of a difference between having it on or off. RPSTE is the same thing. It's supposed to eliminate some noise at the end of a repeater transmission. There's a repeater trail noise. It's kind of like a squelch noise at the end. Again, I turned it on and off. I've seen this much of a difference between it. I guess that little noise could bother people and they want it off. You could turn the setting on and it'll eliminate it a little bit. But from my opinion, I don't even see why you would even mess with this setting. But it's there. RPTR-L. This delays that tail end squelch noise that you're going to hear from a repeater. I'm not really sure why you would delay it, but you can do it. It will delay it in milliseconds, and you could set the timer up or down depending on what you want. Again, with GMRS, I'm not really sure why you would mess with this, but it's there. PONMSG. This is the power on message. You could turn it on or off, and inside of Chirp, you could turn a power on message on. All my radios have a power on message. It's just my little CSP, Citizen Survival Plan. I just do it just for fun. It's not necessary. Roger. This is a Roger beep. When you are done transmitting, you will transmit and let go, and it'll give a little beep letting everyone know and you that your transmission has ended. Reset. This is something you don't want to do if you have a programmed radio. This will, when you hit it and confirm, it's just going to erase all your settings and all your channels out of your radio. Okay, now we are going to get into DTMF tones. I saved this for last. A lot of people aren't going to use this, but this is the demo if you want to know how to use them and how they work. DTMF tones are this. Your radio's touchpad will emit a sound when you transmit and press the buttons. If you can look over here, I have a DTMF app up that can listen to the radio that is taking in the DTMF codes, and you could see the numbers I can type. So I'll type 147 on this, and the app will show that. So if you have a radio that can decode DTMF tones, like this KG935G+, I can use another radio, and while I'm transmitting to it, type in a DTMF tone, and it will show up on the screen. This radio can actually decode them. Let's go over the DTMF menu item in your radio. This has to do with what you hear on your radio that you're operating. DTST, when you select this means you're only going to hear the DTMF tones when you push the keys on your radio. Your automatic one that you have set for your PTT-ID will not be heard from you, but it will be heard on the other end. Again, this is all has to do with what you hear on your radio. ANIST means that you are only going to hear the DTMF tones that you have automatically plugged in. So if you have your PTT-ID on, you let go and it's on EOT and a transmission, you will hear it transmit out. DT plus ANI means that you're just going to hear everything. When you push the buttons on your radio, your automatic ones, everything, you're going to hear it all. It's going to make all that noise on your end. You will hear it. Off. When you turn this menu item off, that does not mean that your DTMF tones are off. That just means that you, on your end, will not be hearing them. Alright, this is your ANI ID. This is menu item in here 15. It could be slightly different on your radio. I have mine set in chirp, and I changed the number that it originally came with. Mine is just 57. So when I transmit, you'll hear it will transmit 2 digits. You heard 2 beeps when I transmitted. So it is just sending a DTMF tone of 57 to another radio. And again, you can use a decoder or a fancier radio to actually decode them. Okay, this is DTMF codes in your radio's ID. This is just sending them end of transmission, both, that's before and after, off, or before a transmission. I usually have mine set to end of transmission, EOT, and you'll see when I transmit, it's just going to send my radio ID at the end. This is your PTT-LT. What this does is delays your radio ID transmission at the beginning or end of a transmission. Mine is set to EOT, so it's going to transmit at the end, my radio ID. So this is set to 50, which is the longest it's going to delay it. So let's go. Still transmitting, and there's my PTT-ID at the end. Let's take this. We will set this down to basically the lowest one, or basically nothing. And what it's going to do is just transmit the PTT-ID right away. It's not going to delay it at all. And it just hits it right. So this is where DTMF codes come into your alarm mode. So this is your alarm mode, or ALMOD. I have it on code, and I have an alarm code typed in chirp. And when I hit my alarm now that I have the code in and it's on code in the radio, when I hold my alarm down, when my alarm goes off on this radio, it does not make an alarm sound anymore. It sends a DTMF code, which other people could decode and possibly realize that I would be in trouble. All right, we're getting close, everybody. Please stuck around. This is S code. This has to be done in chirp. That's why I'm up here and we're looking at this screen. So let's go to settings first. You are going to go to your DTMF code, your encode settings here, where my mouse is. I have it highlighted. These are my numbers I'm typing in, 555-222. So let's say we want a signal code of 4 on a specific channel. These signal codes are per channel. We need to go over to memories. So let's recap really quick. We need to go to our DTMF encode settings. You could type whatever you want into these. you could see my alarm code and you can see my radio code. My ANI code is 57. Now this is going to come into play in a second. The ANI code is 57 and I have that EOT, end of transmission. So when I let go of my PTT button, it is going to send that 57 out. This is going to come into play in a second because this overrides your S code sometimes in certain settings. Let me explain. In memories, let's say we want channel 15, and I already have this kind of set up for this demo, so it's already in here, but I'm going to make sure that you understand. We are going to right-click the frequency of GMRS 15, that channel. We are going to go to Properties. So here is a smaller screen with some more settings in it. We want to hit Extra. So PTT-ID. I want it on both now, because if I'm going to send an S code, it is still going to run my push-to-talk ID at the end. So when you choose both, what's going to happen is it's going to run your S code as soon as you key up. And then when you let go of transmission or the push-to-talk button, it will run your radio ID. So you're going to have 2 DTMF codes going on this channel when you're using it. If I were to choose end of transmission, it would not work because I have my radio ID on. It's just going to override the S code. And when I do before transmission, it will play the S code before the transmission, but then it cancels out the PTT-ID. So it's kind of complicated. The best bet is if you want an S code, run it on both. And then this is where you choose your S code. So I want 4. Remember the chart we were just at over here. I'm going to go back to that really quick. This is, let me X out. If I go back to settings, DTMF codes, this is where all your signal codes are. This is where you can type them in. So I want signal code 4. That's the one I'm going to choose in memories on GMRS 15. Properties, we're going to go back into extra, and we have S code 4 chosen. Let's do a demo of this. Okay, so let's do the S code demo. So on this radio, we're on GMRS 15. We did S code 4. We chose that in chirp, and it's in the radio. So what's going to happen is it's going to transmit the S code and then my radio ID at the end. If we look down here, we have the S code, or the DTMF decoder on, and it should play 222, then 57, which is my radio ID. 222 being the S code program for GMRS 15. Let's go. When I let go, and we got it. 22257. That is the S code on GMRS 15, and that was my radio ID at the end. I hope everyone found this video helpful. It is my goal to get people to understand how to use the radios. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.